Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Chandra and I make videos about reading, writing, and all things books. Today's video was requested by Dorothy Lover in the comments on my authortube tag where we got to talking, and I found out that they have a channel where they do custom trailers, like music, original music specifically. So if you're interested, you're looking for some original music, go check out their channel, which is linked below. The video today is planning and outlining historical fiction. This is the first step at the 3 books and 1 rewrite that I have done where I rewrote from scratch have all been historical fiction. I am currently working on a fantasy project, but up until this point, all I have written is historical fiction. The first thing that I like to do when I'm writing or planning to write a story that is historical fiction, I like to theme the book. This has been really helpful, and I did this for my last 2 books, and it made a really big difference. I'm a very visual learner. I like to see things, and I like to do them as I'm observing them in order to kind of cement it in my brain. So the first thing that I did was make a mood board. Just use something simple like Canva, or even do it on Pinterest, and start to pin a bunch of pictures or grab a bunch of pictures and put them all together in one place to create a sort of collage that gives a general feel and the color for the book. For me, the color is really important because it indicates if it's going to be happy or sad or somber or kind of a little bit more sunny, and it gives me that mental image. I'm bringing together any bits or flashes as I've visualized the book before I've written it, or any of the themes. It brings it all together in one place so I can give it a solid feel. So that is the first thing that I like to do. The second thing I like to do is a simple outline. This will maybe be a page. And I will just go through and write down any ideas that I have for what the book might look like, and I try to put them in a 3-act outline, which will just be, the 3 acts and then 3 points for each one. Very simple, but any ideas at all that I have for the story will go into that format. I'll always leave a space for notes, because as I'm working on things and outlining further, I will come up with more ideas, and sometimes I'll have stuff that comes up and I'm like, do I want to include this? Or I think I want to include this, but I don't know where. I'll add it to the notes section, and then I'll keep it moving. After the single page outline, I like to move on to do the Snowflake Method, which I have a video for, and I will link somewhere around here. I go through the Snowflake Method and finish fleshing out the story and really develop the characters. For some of the projects that I've worked on, it's been really easy because I've already had the characters, they're in the same world, and I have a lot of that already figured out, or I've been rolling it around in my brain for a while, and it's not as difficult for me to pull it all together onto one page. But it's good to have it written out, and I usually do not include any kind of character descriptions or anything like that at this point, and keeping it very, very simple. One thing that I didn't do in my second book that I've started to look at for books 3 and 4, which is very helpful, is not to do all of the research before. By the time you get to the point, or for me, by the time I get to the point of actually writing anything, I've forgotten what I researched. So I do like to make a note of anything that I'm including in the book that I want to research later, but I do not research it before. This is for 2 reasons. One, because I'm going to forget a lot of it. 2, because if I don't, I'll end up researching it while I'm writing, and then I end up info dumping into the story, and that's not helpful. How do I get around outlining or researching before I actually start writing? Because there will not be any research in this part of the process. I write what I think happened, how I think things were. This is also important when you're going back and you're correcting errors. If you know that you did this and you've already marked the places where you need to fact check yourself, it makes it a lot easier. If you don't do that, then when you do your read through after, and totally, that'll be another video, but when you do your read through after, I have some strategies for catching all of the things that you're like, is that really how that happened? So don't research, just write what you think happened. Once you're done outlining, you can put any of those areas into your outline or in the notes section, or just somewhere you keep notes of things that you plan to research. Then it's to world building. And I like to world build for everything, even if it's not fantasy. What that will look like in historical fiction is finding floor plans for any housing that you would like to use, or finding city maps and things of that nature. I like to keep them all in Google Keep, and I will just pin links to all of those places in one document. That way when I have questions and I'm giving directions, and I don't like to give not super specific directions, but I just need to know, like, he rode west. Cool. Is west actually the right direction, or is that going to be something super obscure and vague that I'm going to have to look up when I am rereading, and I'm not going to think to check the directions? So I just, or I'm going to miss a spot where I was actually giving directions and I'm not even going to think about it. So those are the kinds of details that I like to have in mind. Is he going, he was riding towards the sunset, he was riding towards the moonrise, whatever the case may be. I need to know what those directions are going to look like so that I'm orienting things correctly around at least one central point. The other important thing is housing can be really difficult. I tried this when I realized I didn't have a layout of the house that I was writing, and I was like, ooh, I have a lot of this in my mind, but when I actually go to write it down, I don't know if this makes sense. So it doesn't have to be spot on, but sometimes I do like to sketch those out in advance and give a kind of layout, even go through, sketch the different rooms that they're going to be in and what I think is in there. It doesn't have to be super specific, but just enough information so that there's something to go off of. And this will also come in handy when you're researching. So that was number 4. Go ahead and do any world building that you might need. Locations, all of that kind of stuff. Get that knocked out and have a plan for them at the very least. If they are public locations, I guess we're sliding back, doesn't matter. There are locations you can find like historical pictures for. If you get any of those, also add those to your notes because they can be very helpful when you are writing about actual historical settings that people can check. Number 5. Character development. This is when I like to take my characters out and play with them, get to know them a little bit, and set them up for how they would be. Again, with social norms, I don't do that at this point in the story. I just focus on getting an understanding of the character. If there's any things that you need to clean up around social etiquette and stuff like that, you can do that later. But sometimes, like one time I got into researching the fan language, and I got really lost in that. I got really into the weeds. So for the first draft, I don't worry about stuff like that. But I do make a note of things that I would like to include if it is relevant for the time period. I didn't really talk a whole lot about character development. I believe I do have another video on character development. If not, I will be making one, and once I do, I will put it in one of those places. Number 6. Outline Act 2 and 3. So before, when we outlined, I was just outlining that first act, but I like to save outlining Act 2 and 3 until I have a much better understanding of the characters. In fact, a lot of times I will write the first act before I start outlining 2 and 3, just because that works better for me. So this is an optional one. If you've already done all of your outlining, there's no need to worry about it. But if you are like me and you like to know the characters a little bit better and you like to take things out and take it for a test drive before you finish outlining, definitely do that. It's not a problem, and I've actually found it to be very useful. I will have another video in this series where I talk about outlining historical fiction and then getting into the actual drafting process. Drafting, I feel like, is probably the easiest one, so I will do a third video where I talk about starting the revisions, because I think that's where the real fun starts for historical fiction. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you have additional questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and don't forget to like this video because it helps me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!